Charges have just been filed in connection with this gruesome crash. 2 men were indicted Tuesday for killing 8 people back in February while they watched an illegal street race. Police say the men weren't part of the organized event that the fans had come to watch, but they reportedly were driving at about 110 miles an hour with their headlights off when they plowed into a crowd. The spectators apparently spilled into the street after watching 2 other cars speed off and were hit from behind. The deadly wreck happened in the early morning darkness on this isolated southern Maryland highway. The men were each charged with 8 counts of vehicular manslaughter along with reckless driving and street racing. And if convicted, they face up to 10 years in prison on each manslaughter count. The charges come after investigators spent 6 months interviewing more than 75 witnesses and reviewing images from a security camera near the scene. Mike Gracia, The Associated Press.
Maryland officials want to eliminate highway traffic deaths by the year 2030, but recent crash data shows they have a long way to go in convincing drivers to be more careful. 7 News' Jay Korf with more on a new heat map showing where it's the worst.
Route 210 in Prince George's County is infamous for fatal crashes. In fact, one of the primary features of Maryland's new crash fatality dashboard is a heat map showing where drivers, passengers, pedestrians, and cyclists are dying. Prince George's County remains at the top, followed by Baltimore County and then Montgomery County, which makes sense since these are high car volume travel corridors. In terms of fatalities, the peak occurred during the pandemic with 573 deaths on Maryland roadways, followed by a minor downward trend to 538 fatalities in 2022. Dr. Tim Kearns is the director of Maryland's Highway Safety Office.
Roughly about the same pace.
What's equally mind-boggling to highway safety experts is the same 4 contributing factors continue to lead to so much heartache. Last year, speed or aggressive driving contributed to 445 out of 538 fatalities. Distracted driving, impairment, and people not buckling up are the other 3 notorious habits far too many drivers can't seem to stop.
And when you tie distraction with speed and impairment and even failing to wear a seatbelt, the outcomes, if you're involved in a crash, won't be good.
Safety officials and law enforcement leaders will now use these numbers to better tailor programs designed to educate drivers on how to be more mindful of their fellow citizens, whether they're driving, walking, or riding along our area roadways.
We need people to wear their seatbelt. We need people to not drive impaired. We need people to put the phone down, and we need people to obey the speed limit.
The numbers also show that fatalities involving pedestrians and cyclists continues to trend even or upward in Maryland. I'm Jay Korf for 7 News.
A lot of people changing lanes without signaling, stopping, braking abruptly for no reason. Speeding seems to be a big thing that people are doing these days.
Regina Ali of AAA Mid-Atlantic says the bad driver habit started in 2020 at the height of the COVID pandemic.
Unfortunately, what we have seen is a rise substantially in risky driving behaviors to include red light running, speeding, driving while impaired, you name it, we're seeing an increase in those risky behaviors.
Everybody's in a hurry. Nobody, nobody's courteous anymore.
No, not at all.
Not at all. Yep. Everybody, they got to be first.
Everything is a rush. Everything is just like, do it now. Do it in the moment. And no one's really being, like I said, sense of awareness. There's no real sense of awareness to where, let me watch my surroundings. Let me kind of take it easy. Let me prep myself. Let me give myself a few minutes to actually get out.
AAA reports 563 crash fatalities on Maryland roads in 2021, compared to 573 in 2020, and an alarming increase of drivers who admit to getting behind the wheel after drinking and feeling they were over the legal limit. That's an increase of nearly 24%. Unsafe lane changes, running lights, and even road rage are also major concerns.
It's incumbent upon all of us as drivers to be safe on the roadways. It's almost like civility has gone out the window. People aren't courteous anymore.
This driver just might have the best solution to this risky driving.
Maybe a revisiting of driver's education for adults would be beneficial, because a lot of people don't know how to drive these days.
Okay, back out here on 695. In the time that you weren't seeing me in the story, I saw an unsafe lane change, somebody changing lanes with no signal. And, you know, what are you told in driver's ed? If you see red brake lights, you need to slow down. That's an indication that something's happening in front of you. But no, there was a person with brake lights in front of him, but he's speeding up. So, I mean, it's just some crazy stuff going on out here. You know, so people need to slow down. They need to be nice, and just try to be kind, and maybe take the advice of the young man in our story who said, "Be aware of your surroundings and don't rush out the house and then race to get somewhere."
We have some alarming new numbers just into CNN. U.S. traffic deaths surging amid an increase in reckless driving during the pandemic, setting the fastest pace from January to September ever recorded. CNN's Pete Muntean is live for us in Fort Washington, Maryland, with more. What is the trend that we're seeing here, Pete?
Well, Brianna, locals call this the highway of death. 2 fatal crashes here in as many weeks. And the sad truth is you probably know a spot like this where you live. And now the federal government has a new plan to combat this nationwide problem. Safety advocates call it an epidemic on our roads. This past Saturday alone, this head-on crash near Fresno killed 5. 4 more died in this fiery wreck on I-75 near Atlanta. And last month in Las Vegas, 9 people were killed when police say a driver apparently ran a red light.
This is an unfathomable tragedy that has forever altered the lives of so many people.
New numbers from the National Highway Traffic and Safety Administration show in the first 9 months of 2021, fatal crashes jumped by 12%, the biggest increase in the agency's history. More than 31,000 people were killed in car crashes. The numbers show that speeding and driving without a seatbelt has gone up during the pandemic.
This is a national crisis.
Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg just unveiled the Biden administration's plan to make driving safer. Billions from the bipartisan infrastructure law to help counteract for human error behind the wheel.
People make mistakes, but human mistakes don't always have to be lethal.
It's very tough.
It was March 17, 2000, when Cynthia Jones's sister Karen pulled over to fix her gas cap when she was hit by a drunk driver. Cynthia identified her sister's body.
She would want me out here to make a difference in saving more lives because she didn't have to go that way.
The crash happened here on Indian Head Highway in Maryland. Last year, the highest recorded speed here was 149 miles per hour. Safety advocates call it the highway of death.
It's straight shot and a few traffic lights, and people use it as a raceway. If you want to speed, this is the place to do it.
Some of the money from the DOT's new National Roadway Safety Strategy will go to redesigning dangerous roads in hopes of suppressing crash numbers that were going down until now.
People should be outraged.
National Transportation Safety Board Chair Jennifer Homendy was herself rear-ended at a Virginia intersection last year. Her agency has recommended that automakers install automatic braking and collision warnings in all cars, but regulators have not yet acted.
So we have to change. We need all stakeholders to come to the table, and we need to build in redundancy so that people survive crashes.
Both vehicles went up in flames.
Reverend Dr. James Screen says 80 people have been killed on this stretch of Indian Head Highway in the last 15 years. He says directing more federal funding to combat dangerous driving is only the start of a road to lasting change.
It's got to be hard to see. I mean, you're doing this interview and people are whizzing by you.
Yes, that's a part of the indifference that people have about driving. As I say, this contentious type of entitlement mindset. You know, I do as I please, whatever I can get away with. And so we have to hit that head on in some type of way where it won't be all people, but at least most people, where we can manage it in a better way than what we're doing now.
If you think this problem is going away, think again. The NTSB points out that driving miles on average are going up as more people are going back to commuting. Here in the state of Maryland, they're averaging 1 fatal accident statewide for every day of 2022. Brianna.
Yeah, too many. Pete Muntean, thank you.
From the rails to the roads, a dangerous situation where it's a highway that many of you have driven. Tonight, the News 4i team is digging into the effectiveness of the Maryland Route 210 speed camera enforcement program in Prince George's County.
It's supposed to mail citations to speeders, but the I-team found some of the roadway's fastest drivers are breaking the law with no consequences, raising questions from the community and from police about why the cameras aren't catching the culprits. Investigative reporter Tracy Wilkins has our story.
They call Route 210 the highway of death. And deadly scenes like this are why. Police say speeds exceeding 160 miles per hour happen on this 55-mile-per-hour road.
We don't want anybody to die on this road.
It's why Ron Weiss and others who live here fought years for automated speed cameras on Route 210. In 2019, state lawmakers approved 3 mobile cameras, among the first in Maryland, to be on a state highway in a non-construction zone.
It's working.
But Ron says there's a problem.
It's just not working on the really bad drivers.
The News 4i team obtained reports prepared late last year by the Prince George's County Police Department's Automated Enforcement Division. It expressed concerns, including why the vendor was at one point, quote, struggling to provide data every month. The report went on to say the vendor, New Jersey-based Conduit, has not fully addressed what appears to be a consistency problem in the data and produced 0 citations for speeds greater than 89 miles per hour. The bottom line is data suggests the faster you go, the less likely you are to get a ticket on 210. The I-team analyzed data between April and October of 2022 and found that only 41% of photographed speeders were issued actual citations.
It's still bad, and we still don't know what the problem is with the cameras.
Former AAA spokesman John Townsend said while studies show the mere presence of cameras has proven to reduce overall speeding, he was surprised so many potential citations are being tossed.
What's more important? Is it getting the actual citation, or is it just having the cameras here to deter behavior?
So the most important thing is to have the camera. But when you have anomalies in the system where drivers are going 140 miles per hour and they're not ticketed, that shows a lack of confidence in the data.
We took these concerns about the cameras to the vendor who operates them, but the vendor declined to comment and referred us to the county. The Prince George's County Police Department declined to go on camera, but in a statement said the ultimate goal of the program is to reduce speed on Route 210 and that it's meeting that goal because the data has shown a reduction in speed where the cameras have been deployed. The I-team wanted to know how other speed enforcement programs in our region are catching the worst offenders.
Our highest clock speed was 173 miles per hour.
And there was more where that came from on I-83 in Baltimore, where the city unveiled a speed camera program last year. But instead of mobile cameras along the road, they have 2 fixed cameras mounted high above traffic, something Baltimore DOT Interim Director Corin Johnson says was necessary for I-83's design.
It's most definitely having the impact that we hoped. We are seeing people slowing down.
And speeders are getting caught. Johnson told the I-team the program has a citation issuance rate of 97%.
We're constantly monitoring both the speed sentries, the cameras, immediately addressing any type of issues that might occur to ensure that we're getting that consistent rate accomplished.
Baltimore's cameras are operated by a different vendor than Route 210. That vendor verified the 97% number to the I-team. Johnson said while the cameras themselves are a deterrent, so is following through with citations.
People know they can drive through there and get citations, but they're thrown out. Then you're not really concerned about the hitting your pocket and making it personal.
For Ron, the success of the speed camera program on 210 feels personal too.
If we don't fix this problem, more people are going to die.
Prince George's County Police did not respond to our questions about why only 40% of those speeding events have resulted in citations, or if they've addressed why no speeders going above 89 miles per hour were cited. They did, however, refer us to the Prince George's County Revenue Authority that oversees the program. The authority has not yet provided the information we requested. Tracy Wilkins, News 4 I-Team.
Now, in a statement, Prince George's County Police told News 4 the speed camera program could have a bigger impact if they were allowed to use more cameras. That could happen, as the General Assembly is now considering two pieces of legislation involving Route 210. One piece would increase the number of cameras, and the other would escalate fines, which are now just $40 for recidivists.
Indian Head Highway may soon lose the speed cameras that some credit with making it at least a little bit safer. As Maryland Bureau Chief Brad Bell explains, one of those cameras clocked a driver going 168 in a 55 zone.
Indian Head Highway has a well-earned and very bad reputation.
You go down the Indian Head Highway, take your life in your hands. People don't believe in speed limits or stop signs.
The speeding is just unbelievable.
Just last year, 10 people died in crashes here.
It's the deadliest highway in the area. You know, we need to do something to slow people down and to get these reckless speeders to change their behavior or get them off the road.
Activist Ron Weiss is among those who convinced state lawmakers 3 years ago to allow police to set up 3 speed cameras here along the highway, even though they aren't in school or construction zones as Maryland law generally requires. But it was only for a 3-year trial period. That ends this September. Now, Weiss wants the cameras to remain.
This is our main street, and we don't want to die going shopping.
So today, Weiss testified before a House of Delegates committee in support of 2 bills that would allow a total of 10 speed cameras along the 14 miles of Indian Head Highway and create a schedule of fines starting at $40, increasing to $530 for those caught going 52 over the limit and up to $350 for repeat offenders. Some in Charles County have complained it amounts to a toll on the busy commuter route. Weiss rejects that argument.
It only hurts people who speed.
Delegate Chris Valderrama, who is sponsoring this legislation, tells me she expects opposition both to the number of proposed cameras and those escalating fines, but she is hopeful that something will pass and the cameras will stay. In Fort Washington, Brad Bell, 7 News.
The number of speed cameras on our region's deadliest roadway may soon double. Today, the Maryland Senate approved legislation already passed by the State House to increase the number of speed cameras on Route 210 to allow for 6 cameras instead of just 3. Earlier this year, a News 4 I-Team investigation revealed that some of Route 10's fastest speeders have been escaping citations, with only 40% of citable offenses ticketed between April and October of last year. Neither Prince George's County or the company that runs the program could explain why, but did say it's helping to reduce speed. The county tells News 4 it's expecting bids for a possible new camera vendor soon. The call for additional cameras now heads to Governor Wes Moore for his signature. If signed, Route 10 would have more speed cameras than any other state highway in Maryland.